First thing I want to say is that I don't think about this Russian invasion and war in Ukraine as about the war, because I'm aware there are a lot of more wars in the world happen now and then, taking place right now. But this, let's say, unlucky coincidence. So we're unlucky, yeah, to live through this, but we, in some mean sense, were lucky to implement ASCENT project, yeah, during the war. Yes, it brought a lot of difficulties and challenges in terms of data gathering, adherence to protocol, and further data analysis. But in some weird sense, yeah, we also got the opportunity to observe things that we wouldn't be able to observe without this war. Another thing that I want to say is that I'm not the project manager, so probably you will not hear things that you might expect to hear from my presentation, because I'm a qualitative researcher and I kind of took the liberty to put another perspective here. And I should acknowledge that I also have been tempted just to share stories about healthcare workers' experience with you, both devastating and inspirational, let's say. And I think that in some sense it will be enough. But while we have this conversation with healthcare workers, and while I was thinking about them, I decided to try to show how war can highlight the technological nature of DAT, which is actually not so obvious in everyday life. So when we say DAT, like my kids once asked me, Mom, you're repeating this DAT all the time. What does that mean? So when we say DAT, yeah, we mean something. We as implementers and as researchers, yeah. But when we say it to someone else, this abbreviation means something else for different audience, for different people. So obviously DAT means, yeah, has different meaning for NTP, for healthcare workers, for patients, for donors, existence and potential, and so on and so forth. So two main, let's say, stakeholders of DAT in everyday life, yeah, it's healthcare workers, providers, and patients. And as soon as we can, let's say, judge and conclude, yeah, after these 2 years of project implementation, in normal life and under normal circumstances, when you are talking about DAT with healthcare workers, most probably they mean Everwell Hub and adherence calendar, because that's the advantage side of DAT. That's what they use in their everyday practice. And that's what they like most about DAT. And if we would talk about DAT with the patients, most probably in normal life, they would say the word boxes, because that's how they name DAT, because for them, smart pill boxes is the place to store drugs, yeah, and to open it in a disciplined way, preferably, yes, and to be reminded to take the drugs, and that's it. So that what is interesting is that how the experience of DAT usage, yeah, in situation of war, can illuminate this practical meaning of technology in this abbreviation. So what we had before the 24th of February, it's the geography of ASCENT implementation in Ukraine. And you can Crimea region striped in white and gray that was occupied by Russia in 2014. And another piece of occupied territories in the east, it was also occupied in 2014. And 5 regions colored in purple, 5 oblasts. That's how we name regions in Ukraine. In Ukraine, where we implemented ASCENT. If you just visually compare, this map and this map, you can probably conclude that a lot of more territories are occupied right now. So since this invasion began, we kind of immediately lost 2 regions per protocol implementation, let's say, because two districts, 2 oblasts, Mykolaiv and Donetsk, they appear to be under immediate attack by Russian troops with missiles, with explosions, with fires, and so on and so forth. So we had 2 intervention rounds in Mykolaiv Oblast, and 1 round of intervention and 2 rounds of control in Donetsk Oblast. By the 24th of February, in these 3 intervention rounds, we had 146 DSTB and DRTB patients who were using DATs. Another 20 patients had been enrolled since the war began, but 146, yes, that's what these 3 rounds had on February 24th. And what we did, not that it was a particular sub-study, but we just talked a lot with the healthcare workers specifically from these territories, yes, and we asked them about how patients' behavior changed and how their routine practice changed since the February 24th. So there are kind of several things, or insights that were being repeated by different healthcare workers, but I will put there just the quotes, slightly edited, let's say, in the interest of the length, which were the most illuminating, let's say. So what's important is that, and interesting, is that for healthcare workers, green cells and patient adherence became, let's say, the heartbeat of the patient life. So they said that now, if we see that he or she opens the box and the cells in the calendar are green, we know not only that the patient is taking medications, but we know also that he or she is alive. And no one could imagine that this green and red calendar could play such a role, in the healthcare worker's life, let's say. So second interesting thing is that they, let's say, reappreciate and reconsider the value of Everwell hub and DAT mobility, because for example, in Mykolaiv Oblast, they had to discharge a lot of patients from the hospital simultaneously because hospital was under attack, and it was just dangerous to keep patients there. And as healthcare workers from Mykolaiv Oblast said, the cable internet, and stationary computer didn't work those days already, so we couldn't even indicate anything in ETB about these patients, about the changes in their status from inpatient to outpatient. But we had the tablet and we had the Everwell, and mobile internet for some awkward reason was still working, and that's why we kind of registered them first on Everwell and gave them boxes, and then only in a couple of weeks put these changes, marked these changes in ETB Manager. So they never thought about, let's say, DAT as about the source of this extra mobility and independence of infrastructure, but they had to due to war. Third thing is that letter D, yeah, which means digital originally, turned itself into, let's say, distance, yeah, because a lot of patients, they just kind of tried to leave the country or leave the regions, at least, not majority of them, but still, yeah. And one of the healthcare worker told this story about the patient who was on DOT, who used Shurat here. And this woman called the healthcare worker and told her that, you know, I decided I'm leaving, but I don't want to keep this Shurat here thing because I'm not sure that the network will be okay. And yeah, and I don't want this application will be in my smartphone because I don't know what will happen with me next. And this healthcare worker, she answered, okay, let's change Shurat here. Yeah, I will give you smart box. And they both with her husband, I mean, healthcare workers and her husband, they were volunteers, yes, and they drove to the house of this woman and brought a smart box to her and 2 months, if I'm not mistaken, supply of drugs, or 1 month supply, yeah. And then this woman, this patient just left, yeah, the region, and this healthcare worker, she said, yeah, it was very strange feeling that, and I never thought about this like that, yeah, that this patient was kind of far and far away with every day from me. And then I got known that she is in Romania, yeah, but I still was able to see that she was opening the box, yeah, and in this sense, DET and Everwell Hub, it's kind of, yeah, this kind of, I don't know, this anti-distance thing. And they also never thought about this like that before the war. What was the most challenging for healthcare workers is was monitoring and follow up, because yeah, some of healthcare workers from Mykolaiv Oblast and Donetsk Oblast, they took this unpaid leave and just fled the region because they have small kids and for some other obvious reasons. Yes, so those who stayed, they had to take this responsibility. And it was quite challenging for them because a lot of patients, they quit answering calls. They didn't answer anymore. And this is quite understandable, let's say, and healthcare workers, they even weren't irritated by that because they could relate, because if you are sitting in the basement, in the city with all these missiles and bombs, and you are saving your batteries in smartphone, why will you switch it on to have a nice conversation with healthcare workers about some missed dose? And according to healthcare workers, what is interesting is that patients became, let's say, projected and extrapolated their war-related fears onto technologies. So a lot of patients just, they were afraid that the Shurat here thing or smart boxes, that they are kind of sending some sort of signals, which could become the detector of the patients for Russian troops if they come closer. And of course, they were afraid because of this potential stigmatization. What if I would be grabbed? And they will disclose that I have TB. That's the nightmare. Scary. But final, let's say, thing, final observation is this patient inaccessibility. Because there are disciplined, high adherent patients who kept taking medications and didn't cause any problems, but there were other patients who started missing doses and didn't respond to healthcare workers' calls, let's say. And that's interesting, that we can see that technology in itself kept working. Yeah, healthcare workers were trying to make these calls because they saw these red cells. Yeah, and Everwell Hub recorded these missed doses. But what was broken is that patient-provider interaction. Actually, we submitted abstract for union conference about that, but I accidentally read that we're not allowed to show it because it's under kind of embargo. So I decided just to mention it and not to take this risk of ruining ruining the whole abstract. It's a very short one. What I wanted to say in the kind of conclusions, yeah, that these two capacities of the DAT, yeah, mobility and this distant thing, which were not so, I would say, top-rated advantages, were not considered like that before the war. They gain principally new perceived value in the eyes of healthcare workers during the war. And second thing is that paradoxically, during the war, for these healthcare workers who are working in the ranks under literal attack, yeah, DAT, which were very pragmatic and functional things, they are not pragmatic anymore because they try to attribute some symbolic, functionality to this DAT, and they try to find in the DAT some other meaning, yeah, some other extra functionality, which they didn't try to do before. As well as patients, yeah, they do the same. And third, very important thing, I would say the most important one, yeah, that DAT weren't disrupted and weren't damaged, weren't affected by war, yeah. We still have patients who are using it, and we still have healthcare workers who keep monitoring patients. Which were affected by war is providers' capacities to sustain this and to ensure differentiated care approach, patients' readiness to interact with healthcare workers, and yeah, some physical and let's say technical limitations were also the consequences. And it brings us to very important questions, as I think, yeah, about this importance. So originally, initially, yeah, this patient-provider interaction is not perceived as part of DAT. It is perceived as part of differentiated care, yeah. You can allow yourself not to talk with the patient at all, yeah, once the patient is kind of disciplined. But this war, let's say, provoked a very interesting effect. So DAT truly became the extension of human, of both patient and provider. But this extension kind of works only if we ensure that interaction exists. And to be honest, yeah, DAT now doesn't provide this, let's say, capacity. Yeah, they are not about interaction. You should use smartphone to interact. And I think if we would have to, let's say, try to imagine the next stage of DAT development, yeah, we should think probably in this direction as well. Because when you provide technology that imply the necessity to interact, you somehow, yeah, should provide this technology with capacity that ensure this interaction. We still have patients in these three intervention ranks. Some of these ranks and facilities were deployed, others not. Vast majority of healthcare workers from these ranks, they're outside of these territories, and some of them even abroad, but due to distancing of DAT, they are still able to remotely monitor, let's say, patients' adherence. And generally, yeah, in Ukraine, we managed to enroll more than 400 patients since the beginning of this war, due to the fact that DAT is not only digital adherence technology, but also distant adherence technology, I would say, and probably that's it.